wrong with that kid? His head don't work, it never did. You better not cross his path. He's a chain-smoking alcoholic sociopath.
It was Wednesday afternoon, and Kevin had another appointment with Mr. Franklin, the prison psychiatrist. Kevin had more appointments with Mr. Franklin than any other inmate in the prison. Kevin's dad said that was because his head was a whole lot more broken. They were meeting in a new office this week because Kevin had shown up for his last appointment with a head full of glue and had set Mr. Franklin's old office on fire. Kevin set a lot of fires because his imaginary friend Alan the Magic Goose told him it would make him popular with the other inmates. Alan forgot to tell him how the warden and guards felt about fires. Kevin sure wished he had remembered, because he didn't much like getting hit with nightsticks and flashlights.
You seem to both desire to fit in with the crowd, yet you constantly undermine that goal by a pattern of aggression towards them. I suspect your fear of rejection by your peer group overrides your desire to become one of them, causing you to subconsciously sabotage yourself. It's a classic case of low self-esteem, manifesting itself in self-destructive behavior. That tells me that deep down, you believe yourself unworthy of the friendship and camaraderie you so desperately seek.
Blah, blah, blah. Hey, Sacco, I dare you to set his desk on fire.
Remember our little talk, Kevin? Setting fires is a wrong thing to do. A wrong thing. Now, having just read Sally Jesse Raphael's new book, Finding the Rainbow Within, I've decided that you would benefit from group therapy. In the meantime, I feel it would be a good use of our time to continue one-on-one to try and get to the root of your anger issues.
The drapes, Kevin, the drapes.
Wrong thing, Kevin! Wrong thing!
Kevin was 10 years old, and he'd just been caught shoplifting smokes and lottery tickets for his parents and some comic books and cough syrup for himself. It was the 24th time Kevin had been arrested. Kevin's mom and dad weren't too happy because that meant they were going to have to do without smokes until their next child support check came through.
Given the lengthy record of the defendant and his refusal to express remorse, the prosecution requests that Your Honor impose the maximum penalties allowed under the law.
Before I sentence you, Kevin, is there anything you wish to say to this court?
Tell him his wife was the worst hooker you ever paid for, and you want your money back.
The judge was pretty angry at Kevin for calling his wife a prostitute. Kevin's mom thought it was really funny, though, and she laughed so hard that she started to hyperventilate and passed out and banged her head on a chair. Kevin's dad thought this was even funnier, and he laughed so hard that he wet his pants. Kevin's dad wet his pants a lot because the years of drinking had pretty much wrecked his liver and bladder.
Rather than sending you to a juvenile facility, I've opted to sentence you to 3 months of community service on a government-subsidized farm. I would also recommend that your mother and father enroll in a parenting class and that upon your release, you all attend meetings with a family therapist.
My head ain't busted, you effing a-hole.
Jeez Louise, Judge. Welfare don't hardly cover bingo and booze. We ain't got no money for fixing the boys' mentals.
This is your son we're talking about. I suggest you start taking his development seriously. He'll never amount to anything if you two degenerates refuse to become better role models.
Kevin's old man wasn't in the mood for a lecture. He figured he'd show that judge a thing or two, so he took the bottle of wine from his coat pocket, finished the little bit that was left, and threw the bottle right at the judge.
Ah, Jesus. Not again. I'll wait for you, sugar. Mama loves you.
Kevin had never been on a farm before, and he was pretty excited. The man who ran the farm said his name was John McCaffrey, but that his friends called him Chewy because he chewed so much tobacco. Kevin thought Chewy was the coolest person he'd ever met. That night in his bunk, Kevin decided he'd try chewing some tobacco. Chewy hadn't explained the difference between cigarette tobacco and chewing tobacco to Kevin. Kevin threw up for 6 hours. He finally fell asleep at 5 in the morning.
Wake up, Spencer! There's chores need doing, and you're the one what's doing them.
Kevin didn't much like the thought of getting up. He wasn't used to waking up early because his parents didn't have jobs and usually slept until noon, and because they'd pawned the alarm clock for money to bet at the track.
Fill the trough and mind your step. Pigs nearly trampled the last boy to death, and he was bigger than you. When you're done that, go fill this basket with eggs from the chicken barn. And don't break none, because that's your breakfast. That and a bowl of hot milk straight out of that cow's dirty tits. I'm going to be on the chair on the porch having a chew. Giddy up, go, delinquent.
Kevin really wanted to impress Chewy, so he decided he'd try extra hard to feed the pigs properly. The pigs didn't seem to care much that Kevin was new at this, and they kept knocking him down.
You don't gotta take that. Show them pigs who's boss. Hit a pig, boy. Hit a pig.
Kevin was pretty sure hitting one of the pigs wouldn't go over too well with Chewy. So he figured he'd bide his time and take it out on the chickens when he was in the barn and Chewy couldn't see him.
Eat fast, kid. You got 7 miles of fence to put in. Half a mile a day gets you supper. You get more done, I'll see what I can do about an extra blanket. Listen, Nat, and you'll be wishing you were back with the pigs.
Kevin was itching to crank Chewy a real sweet one in the stomach, but because Chewy would likely clean his clock if he did, Kevin figured he'd wait until Chewy was asleep before he learned him a good one.
Time's up, punk. You pick up where the last boy left off. You need anything, I'll be in my chair having a chew.
Kevin had never built a fence before, but he had a pretty good idea how they went together because he'd spent so much time in cages and juvenile detention centers. The first hole he dug wasn't deep enough, and the fence post kept falling over. Kevin wasn't sure what to do. Then he remembered something his father had taught him.
Government will pay you for not working, so screw it.
So Kevin quit and decided to kick back and have a smoke and get good and drilled on the cough syrup he'd snuck along to help pass the time.
Let the good times roll, baby.
After a couple of hours of good times, Kevin ran out of cough syrup and was down to his last 2 smokes. He had another pack back at the house, but he wasn't too keen on seeing Chewy.
Farming's for jerks anyway. Let you and me steal the tractor and get some booze and go. Nice shooting, Jack.
Kevin was pretty sure you weren't allowed to drive a tractor in the city, and even if you were, he'd still be too young to do it anyway. But then if he was the kind of kid that paid attention to rules and laws, he wouldn't be there in the first place. So Kevin figured, what the hell? Driving a tractor in the city was a lot harder because there were a lot more things to hit, like drugstores, for instance. Kevin figured since he was there anyway, he might just as well help himself to more cough syrup. Kevin took a little too long helping himself and drank a little too much while he was doing it. The judge wasn't too happy about seeing Kevin back in court so soon. He was even less happy when Kevin waved hello. Kevin was sentenced to 8 months in a juvenile detention center, which was okay by him because he figured it would be a hell of a lot easier than digging a bunch of holes for fence posts.
I'd like everyone to welcome our newest member. This is Kevin Spencer. Kevin, this is Willie Brown, and, well, I guess you know the rest of them, being family and all.
Hey, boy. What's doing, Kev?
Why don't we pick up where we left off last week? Mike, you were telling us about your anger problems.
You're damn right I was. Booze makes it hard for me to control my temper.
Me too.
Ditto, muchacho.
Yeah, but my temper's way worse than yours.
That's crap, you moron.
Ain't none of you got nothing on me when it comes to temper.
The hell I don't, arsehole.
You want a piece of me, you greasy bastard?
Yes, Phil, I did say it was good to vent your anger. However, there's a right way to vent your anger and a wrong way to vent your anger. How about instead of discussing issues of anger, we instead focus on ways in which to control anger? Kevin, perhaps you'd like to speak on your...
Public speaking made Kevin nervous, but because he didn't want all his relatives to think he was chicken, Kevin decided to tell them about the first time he underwent court-ordered shock treatment.
Everyone, we have a special treat this week. This is Elizabeth Armstrong, and she's brought her crystals. She's going to help us talk through our issues of alienation and hostility and offer some constructive criticism that will help us all develop into better people. We're very fortunate to have a woman of her expertise. Her list of credentials is awe-inspiring, including 3 years as a researcher for Oprah, 5 years as an associate producer on The Ricky Lake Show, and 2 years as a staff writer at Hallmark Cards. Miss Armstrong.
Hi everyone. I'd just like to say that it rejuvenates my aura just being here. I am certain that by the end of today's session, we will all have taken a big step towards finding our inner ocean. I'd like to start with a breathing exercise, and then we'll take turns shifting the blame for our individual problems to society and your parents.
Kevin thought Miss Armstrong was the prettiest girl he'd ever seen. He decided he loved her. Kevin really wanted to ask her out.
Me, I figure it was because my dad was always working. He didn't have time for me when I was a kid. So when I turned 16, I quit school and I robbed a bunch of gas stations. I don't figure I'll never change.
Never say never, Slappy. Remember, today is the first day of the rest of your life.
She's hot for you, crazy man. Ask her out. First time I got arrested was for beating up some kid and stealing his bike. But you know, like you watch TV all the time and, look in stores and whatever, and it's like there are bikes everywhere. And I didn't have one, They shouldn't have been teasing me like that.
That is good, Philip. The first step towards rehabilitation is the willingness to accept your portion of responsibility in your crimes. We all have our own bicycles to deal with, don't we? That is right. That is very good. Keep breathing and visualizing. Now, Kevin, would you like to share?
Kevin froze in self-conscious fear. He wanted to tell Miss Armstrong how pretty he thought she was, but he couldn't say a word.
Jesus, my boy's got it for you bad, Miss Armstrong. He always gets like that when he likes a girl, but he's too damn scared to do nothing.
Kevin and Elizabeth sitting in the tree. K-I-S-S-I-N-G. First come love, then go.
Bravo! Now ask her out, lunatic.
Perhaps that will be enough for today.
Guards! Guards!
Kevin took a deep breath. He figured this was the only chance he would ever have. So before the guards took him away, Kevin asked Miss Armstrong if she would marry him. The guards burst out laughing, and so did Miss Armstrong.
Even if I was stupid enough to date a convict, It sure as hell would not be you.
That night, Kevin sat in his cell feeling sorry for himself and drinking some contraband booze. He was really embarrassed by what Miss Armstrong had said, so he figured he'd break out of prison and get real jimmied up on prescription cough syrup.
Kevin, I'm curious about your allegiance to your imaginary friend Alan. It seems as though he has a hold on your psyche that effectively establishes a master-slave relationship, wherein you feel powerless to say no to his commands. I think it would benefit us both if we were to further explore your relationship with Alan and your subconscious desire to please him.
Kevin was released from the Juvenile Detention Center 2 months early and ordered to perform 1,200 hours of community service by working as a greeter for a department store. It was the first job Kevin had ever had, and he was really nervous. So before he went in, he drank 2 bottles of prescription cough syrup and had a few smokes, just to take the edge off.
You're late, idiot. If it happens again, you'll find your sorry ass back in the joint quicker than you can say Jim Dandy. Put on this tie, go stand by the front door and make nice.
Kevin stood by the front door and said hello to the first few customers. He really wanted to do a good job, but not as much as he really wanted to get some more cough syrup. Kevin figured it was about time for his break anyway, so he decided to wander around the store and maybe steal some things he liked.
You might want to think about a blazer to go with that top and, a television set.
It was family day at the department store, and they were having a big Mother Goose in-store promotion.
Idiot kids climbing all over me.
You're the one who drank yourself out of the children's party circuit, so quit your bitching!
Look, it's hotter than Hades in this frickin' thing. I spent damn near my whole break trying to take a leak.
You should try walking a mile in these shoes.
Break's over, losers. Get your asses back out there and make the kids happy. Sell, sell, sell. Get the little bastards harping at their parents for new toys. Tell them their parents promised you they'd buy the kids whatever they wanted. If that don't work, tell them you're dying and you need the money for a life-saving operation. Tears equals sales. Giddy up, go!
Kevin was hiding behind a rack of clothes having a smoke when the man dressed as Mother Goose came out of the back room. Maybe it was just the cough syrup talking, but when Kevin saw the man putting his goose head back on, he got real scared. Kevin figured the man was evil and had taken over Alan's soul. Kevin didn't much like the thought of somebody taking over Alan's soul and living inside his body, so he figured he'd straighten things out right quick.
Hey kids, look at all these neat toys. I sure wish I could play with them forever, but that probably won't happen because I have necrotizing fasciitis and I'm gonna die unless I sell enough of them to afford medical help. You don't want the big fun goose to die, do you?
Kevin waited until the goose had his back turned to him and was talking to all the kids. Then he snuck up behind him really quickly and smacked him a real sweet one on the back of the head with an arm he'd taken off a mannequin. The goose never saw it coming, and his head came right off. All the kids screamed. Kevin figured this was because they all realized an evil man had taken over Alan's soul. Kevin was wrong. All the kids were screaming because they weren't used to seeing their favorite storybook characters violently assaulted. The police came and took Kevin away and put him back in the Juvenile Detention Center. Kevin wasn't too happy about being back in juvie, but he figured it was all worth it in the long run, because he'd saved his friend Alan the Magic Goose. It had taken Pete almost 2 weeks to dig the escape tunnel. It would have gone faster if Kevin had helped, but Kevin didn't much like the thought of working. And besides, he thought, because Pete was crazy and thought that Kevin was Jesus Christ, he pretty much did everything he was told to anyway.
I was thinking, you being omnipresent and all, isn't it kind of meaningless them locking you up?
Kevin didn't know what omnipresent meant, so instead of answering the question, Kevin threatened to send Pete to hell if he didn't shut up and dig faster. That always got Pete to work harder.
Brokenhead, let you, me, and the big crazy freak get some booze and girls.
Kevin and Pete decided to go to Big Al's house of simulated coitus. Kevin knew how to get there because his dad used to make him drive him there all the time because he'd lost his driver's license after his 14th driving while impaired charge.
Ah, jeez. Look at that. She ain't got no rhythm. You call that stripping?
Kevin had forgotten that one of Pete's personalities was an 18-year-old stripper named Brandy Love. Pete jumped up on the stage and scared the other girl away. Then Pete started to dance and take his clothes off. The other people in the bar weren't too happy about that, but no one said anything because Pete was so big and it was pretty obvious he was insane. Kevin figured he'd better go before the cops came, so he stole all the tip money from a few tables and snuck out the back door.
Shut your hole, you unemployed son of a bitch, and give me a smoke.
Get your own damn smokes, fatty.
Kevin's mom didn't like to be teased about her figure. She was about to learn Dad a thing or two when Kevin walked into the kitchen. Kevin hadn't seen his parents since his father's parole hearing 2 weeks ago, and he was really happy.
You got any smokes, boy?
Everyone was real happy to see each other, so they decided to celebrate. Mom was already pretty tanked when Kevin had shown up, so she didn't celebrate for too long. That night, while his parents were sleeping, Kevin figured he'd help himself to some of the old man's booze. The next morning, while Kevin's dad was fixing breakfast, he found out that Kevin had stolen his booze. The old man was really cheesed off, so he phoned the cops and turned Kevin in.